So the last session we talked about databases, right? And what databases are. Again, if you don't have it, you can always go back and refer to the previous video. So today we're gonna focus more on the SQL part of the session. And remember, we talked about saying SQL is one of the skills, if you learn, can open up a lot of doors for you. You can be if you want to be like a data analyst, where you're looking at data from different companies and analyzing how the data is. This is one of the skills that you want to do. If you want to work as a database administrator, this is one of the skills that you need to know. If you are even a Linux administrator dealing with databases, right? And just have an understanding of how databases work. This is something, if you put in your resume saying you know it, it's going to always help you that you actually can interact with a database. So today, again, is the last of the free sessions. And what I'm going to do is our paid sessions start on Saturday, but people are welcome to take some of the first sessions and see if they like it. Then we can talk about moving forward with that. So I'll be teaching the AWS, Amazon Web Services, and my partner will be teaching, my partners will be teaching the two cybersecurity classes. The one is the RMF class, which stands for the Risk Management Framework. So that's one of the cybersecurity courses. And another one is a SOC. The SOC is more of the analyst, Security Office Center. So it's one of those things where people, so those are the two cybersecurity classes that we have. So all of those are starting on Saturday. So this is the last session where everyone is together. After that, everyone kind of just go their own separate ways. Again, please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't done so, because I'll be posting videos the rest of the year and hopefully next year of things that could be interesting. Like it'll be like short sessions. Maybe I'm talking about different things and I'll just record it and post it there. And also stay on the group. I know you guys have a lot of groups. So whenever the next sessions of classes are gonna start, we'll also announce it in that group. So after saying that, let's get started. So today we're gonna focus on some creating and inserting into a database, right? That's the key thing we're going to be working on. It may be other things, but these are the key things we're going to, oops. It should be, so let me see here. The sessions should be on should be number 6. So the slides are there. And let me turn this off. Turn off editing. Number 9. So 8 and then 9 should be there. So 9 will have the SQL. I need to, and then these are the two things we're going to be using today. So the first one is the slides, and then the second one is this paper here. And this is more, again, I used to, we did teach Oracle. So this was mostly for those, that Oracle, but it may not always fit, but again, so. So the notes will be under number 9, okay? Okay, let's get started. My courses, the link that you're on? It's gonna be under the, my courses, and you should have registered for the free enroll. So you should see like so if you go to the home, again, in the bottom, you should see like courses there, right? So you're gonna click on this one, the one that says IT fundamental. And if you're not in there, it will say enroll me. If you click on enroll me, it will enroll you in that class. So again, and this recording isn't going to be up, by the way. So this session will be up so you can always come back and watch it if you feel like you want to review. It'll be up for some time. So don't feel like you have to rush. I don't know. Somebody's asking. So the SOC is a security plus. Yeah, and then the Oracle class right now. I don't know if we do Oracle right now, but Oracle takes long, and a lot of people are moving to the cloud. So we'll see. So we have to assess as a company if we want to continue, if we want to offer Oracle in the near future. And also it's about demand. If you have a big enough demand for Oracle, we may do it, but yeah, I don't know. So let's go to the to what we have on task. So so the last time, this is like a snippet of what we did, right? What is a table, right? So this entire thing in red is a table. This entire thing in red is a table, right? Yeah. So you have a table, and a table consists of what? Records, right? Yeah. So everything in blue here, this would be one record. Yeah. So a record tells you everything about everyone, right? So this is kind of an easy visual way to see it, right? And then the records are made of what? Fields, right? So a field is just a column. It's also known as a column. So this could be one field, okay? Now, and there's something called primary key. A primary key it's a field that's unique. It's a field that's unique, primary key. A primary key is a field that's unique. What's a field that's unique? Like this customer table. This is a unique field. Because why? It's customer ID. A unique field can also be like a social security number. A unique field means it only can be entered one time, right? So that's a primary key. A unique key means it can only be entered one time. So for example, if somebody comes and say, my name is Mohammed Fofana, right? And you have a unique field called social security number. And he says, my social security number is 111, right? And then you enter that into the computer system. If another person comes and say, my name is Mohammed Fofana, my social security is 111. It's not gonna accept this entry because it already has a social security, a number that's unique. So unique field is one of the ways you can prevent duplication. The first name and last name can be the same, that's not a unique field. But if that person also, even if they say, my name is John Smith, and then they say my social security is 111, it's not gonna allow it because we already have a 111 social security entered. So a unique field just means it's usually one, you don't want everything. You have to be very careful when you pick something to a unique field. Does it make sense to have a database and you create a unique field under the first name? No, because you can have two people with the same first name, right? So that means once you have somebody named John, if another person named John, you cannot put their system in there. But a social security is unique to an individual. So that is a good category to make sure that it's unique, okay? So this is just a quick graph to just show you guys how, from a review from what we did, okay? So keep this in mind. Tables have records. Those records are made of fields. And some of those fields can be primary, which means that you cannot have the two entries that are the same in those fields.
So fields can also be known as columns.
They are columns. Fields are columns. So these are the fields, which are columns. Okay, fields are columns. Okay.
Can we call them headings? Can we call field headings?
You can call them headings. Yeah, there's also headings, right?
Can we
but
name them
in the
headings?
Yeah, you can call them headings. Nothing wrong with that. But in a database field, most of the time when you talk about database, you refer to them as columns. Those fields, most of the time you hear columns. These are columns. But again, it's the same thing. You call them columns, you call them headings, you call them whatever. But as long as just think like just think like a spreadsheet. Yeah. So we're gonna see more of this. Good question. So before we move forward, we're gonna do a little bit of definition. Slide is a little off. I think I may have skipped something here, but so there are two type of, when you're talking about database SQL, there are two type of languages you're gonna talk about. One is called DDL, and the other one is called DML. These are the two definitions you're gonna hear in a database, right? Now, what does DDL stands for? DDL stands for Data Definition Language. Data Definition Language. And the DDL commands are used to define the structure of database objects or the way schemas objects should look like. So a DDL are what creates structures in a database. So remember, like this is a database, right? Inside this database, what are you going to build? What type of structures are you going to build in a database? Who can guess? What kind of things do you put? What have we been talking about last class? What were we creating? What were we looking at?
Information.
Information. But how is the information put inside of a database? In what format? Come on, people. Somebody think. Tables. You create tables, right? So a database is made up mostly of tables, right? So remember we had a table called what? Classes, right?
Yeah.
We had another one called departments, right? We had another one called students, right? And we had another one called section, right? So that a database is made up of a bunch of tables, right? But what do you create? What's something that connects this table? What do you call it? Relationships. You gotta create, those tables have relationship. A database that has tables with relationship becomes a very powerful database. That's why in this, like they call it relation RDBMS, which stands for Relational Database Management System. So a relational database, it means that the things in there, the tables that are in there are related to each other. And once they're related to each other, they can become powerful because you can connect and join them, right? So we're doing a lot of the theory on Tuesday as far as how tables relate. Today, we're gonna actually build and we're gonna see how we're gonna really create these things and build and see how they are, okay? Any questions so far? So a database is a repository. Remember when I started? It's a repository that holds data. But in this database, it's made up of, in a relational database, they're made up of tables. So think about database, think about like spreadsheets, a bunch of spreadsheets, right? With different names. And these spreadsheets all have relationships. So tables are what a database is made out of. So the first language, which is called Data Definition Language, DDL, are what's used to create those structures inside of the database. It's like you have in a house. All this thing is the database is like has 4 walls, right? But inside of it, you're building things, right? You're gonna say, okay, we're gonna have one room here, another room here, a living room here. But what are these things? These are tables, right? So the DDL are the things that are commands. These are all commands that are changing the structures that are inside of your database, right? The DDLs are changing or creating the structures that are inside of your database, right? So these are the key things. You have to memorize this. The first one is create, the word create, right? So every time you give a command, it has to start with one of these words. You know, SQL stands for what? Structured Query Language. It's an acronym. So it's a language, right? And a language, every language must follow a particular rule, right? Like when you learn in French, you say, tu means you, vous means me, and whatever, right? You learn those structures, right? The same thing goes here. When we're learning Linux, remember? You always start with ls,
Yeah.
mv,
PW.
pwd. You have to follow those commands, right? Followed by something. It's the same similar way. That's why in IT, once you start learning one type of language, a lot of times the similar structure, the similar way in doing Linux is similar to SQL, but the terminology is a little different. So in SQL, we're gonna learn, these are not all of them, there are a few that are missing, but for this class, there's no way I can teach you everything, right? So I just want you to learn some of the things, the basic things that can get you going. So the first things we're gonna learn is DDL. What are the key DDLs? The first one is called a create. The create means what? When you wanna create a table, right? When you wanna create something, what are the things you can create in a database? You can create tables. What else can you create? What's something important? When you wanna have access to the database, what needs to be created first? If five people want to have access to a database, what do you need to first create for them?
Identification.
ID, so a user, also known as a schema, right? User, right? So you can create users, you can create tables, you can create roles, you can create,
Yeah, user, you mean their logins?
Yeah, so you are over there, I'm here.
Okay.
5 of us need to access a database, right?
Yes.
So if all 5 of us are different, what do we have to do? We have to create users in the database. So your username will be there,
Okay.
and they give you password. And then I'm gonna have my username and my password. So we know who exactly is entering in this database and what they can do, right? And also in the database, people may have different, you wanna give people different rights. You want somebody who can shut down or maybe start the database. That would be like a database administrator. But then you want somebody who doesn't know much about database, you want to give them the ability to be deleting or shutting down databases when they don't know what they're doing? No. So you create like roles. You can create a role saying this is a role called admin. And under this role, I'm gonna give it the ability to shut down the database. I'm gonna give them the ability to start up the database. I'm gonna give them the ability to create other users and all of these things. So once I create this role, if I create a user named Mohammed, and I know Mohammed is gonna be the admin, I just give him this role. Now Mohammed can do all the things that were given to that role. Does that make sense? So for this class, this is not an administrator class. This is more of just introductory. So we're not gonna focus on these. I just want you to know some of the things you can create in a database. We're gonna focus more on the table because you guys are not, it's not an admin class. This is more of a SQL class. So you're gonna be creating a lot of tables, right? So tables is what we're gonna focus on. So, but what's the definition here of a create? The definition of create means you can create objects inside of a database. And what's one of the main objects that are created in the database are tables, right? So that's the first DDL. You see, DDL means what? You are defining structures and of objects in a database, right? So when you say create, so first of all, here's my database. I create a database, but it's empty. There's nothing in there, right? When I say create, what do I want to create? Table. Now I can create a table inside. Now I have one table. The next one is, command is alter. Alter means to alter a structure of a database. So here's an example. I have a table here. This table here has first name and last name. When I created the table has how many columns? 2 columns, first name and last name. And I remember, whoops, the table should also have social security number, but I only have 2 columns, right? Now, what do I have to do to add the social security column? I have to alter the table. So I'm gonna give a command alter table, and I'm gonna say add another column called SS. Now, Has the structure of the table changed? Yes. So DDLs are changing or creating structures that are being in the database, right?
Could also be referred to as editing. Could edits
The different type of edits. But depending on the edits you're doing, is what's going to define it as a DDL or DML. So a DDL means that it's changing the structure, right? So this is like alter is changing the structure because before the table had one, right? It had one column, but now it has three. We've changed the structure of that. It's like having 2 bedrooms and then you add another room. Now it has 3 bedrooms. You've changed the structure. Okay, so DDL, think about changing the overall structure, how the table itself looks. Okay, the other one is drop. The drop is the opposite of create. If I create a table, I'm like, I don't need this table anymore. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna drop it. Drop means you're getting rid of the entire table. Okay, that's a drop command. Am I changing the structure in the database? Yes, I'm deleting a table that was there. That's no longer there. Before there was a table here called students. Now, when I say drop, that table doesn't exist anymore. I've changed the structure in the database.
So how is that different from you, when we were talking about the alter, we talked about adding an extra column, if need be.
Yeah,
now,
but again,
if you have to take off that column, like
that's also altering. You're taking off a column. The table still exists. In alter, the table still exists. You just drop in or add in columns.
Columns, yeah. Okay.
Alter is like modifying the table, right?
You modify the table, the structure of the table. Like I said, yeah. So before we had first name and then last name. When you say alter, now you want to add another column on the table called social security number. The table is there. Drop means get rid of the entire table. You wiping it out. Just like create did what? Create, introduce a new table. Drop means you're getting rid of a trouble. Drop this guy from the team. That means he's getting cut off. He's getting kicked out. Create means you're creating a new table. Drop. So these two are opposite. You create and drop. Okay? And another thing is rename is another data definition language because the rename means a table name here is student. And then you say, you know what, you want to change this name and you want to call it teacher. You've changed, you've made a change to the structure itself. You rename the structure. So rename means the table was named this, I want to change it to another name. Okay? So these are the ones that are known as DDL. These are the DDLs. So your DDLs are, okay, any questions so far? Okay, so that's DDL. Now let's go to DML. DML stands for data manipulation. See, the other one is a definition. This other one is a manipulation, right? And DML commands are used to manipulate the data within schema object. Schema is just a user, right? Schema, see schema as a user. A schema is a user. In a database, a user inside of a schema is, so once you have, if you have the 3 of us, right? We are users. As soon as you create something, you create a table, you now become a schema. Why? A schema owns objects inside of a database. A user just has access to a database. So you hear sometimes this thing being used interchangeable. So you can be a user. I created 3 users, right? And you guys met 3 tables here that belong to somebody else. Let's say Mohammed, who's the admin. Now, because you have access to log into the database, you're a user. As soon as you create something in the database, you now become a schema because you now own something that's in that database.
So a schema can manipulate the database, the contents of the database.
The schema owns object inside of a database.
Okay.
So don't get confused. Before you can manipulate something, you have to first do what? You have to create it, right?
Yeah.
So you can create, when you create a table, when you create a spreadsheet, what is it? It's usually empty, right?
Yeah.
But as soon as you start putting information in there, that's now you manipulating. So how I remember this, right? The easiest way to remember the difference between the data definition language and data manipulation languages. Data definition languages, you're changing or creating structures inside that database. The manipulation part is what goes in and out of those tables. You're manipulating the data you put in inside of that table. That's data manipulation language. Data definition language is the creating the structure. So think of a house. You build this little, this is the database is like the neighborhood, right? The database is like the neighborhood, right? And then the tables are like the houses you're building in this neighborhood, right? Because they're all within that neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
That confined neighborhood. Now, how you change the structures of your house, you want the table to be bigger, smaller, that's data definition language, because you're changing the outside, you're changing how the structure looks. But the furniture, what you put in and out of the house is the data manipulation language. You decide, I'm gonna put chairs and tables. You manipulating what's coming in and out of the house. So data manipulation is what's going on in the house. Data definition is what you're doing outside, how your the structure of it. So again, when you learn in IT,
is like the interior.
The interior, what you're doing in, what you bringing in and out of the house. You said, I'm gonna put 2 chairs in, and you're like, no, I'm gonna add another chair in there. No, I'm gonna take 3 chairs, I'm gonna bring 6 chairs in. That's the manipulation, what's going on in the house. You're manipulating what's going on in the house. Now, definition, DDL is what you're doing to the structure. Does that make sense? If you just keep it like that, it makes your life a whole lot easier. And what are the data definition languages? Delete. Delete means delete all records from a table. So you create a table, right? So you use what's called DDL to create a table that has what? First name and last name, right? But the table is empty. As soon as you put the first name, you say, I'm gonna put my first entry as Mohammed Ufana. This input of data you putting in there is now an insert. You insert in a record. See, when you said you insert means you're adding data inside the house. You put inside the house, right? Yeah. So you bring in a chair, and you bring in a chair called Mohammed Fofana, you add in a record. And then you say, okay, I'm gonna add another record called Sam Smith. You're bringing things in the house. So that's the insert part. You say, you know what, Sam Smith, I don't like Sam Smith. I'm gonna delete this record. That's the delete statement. You're getting rid of a record. But you're still doing it in the house. So people tend to confuse delete and drop. The delete means you're just deleting a record or records inside the table. The drop means you're getting rid of the whole house. You're demolishing that house. That is gone. Everything in it is being wiped out. So they're not the same. Delete and drop are not the same. So people who are learning SQL, they tend to confuse this two very easily. So, you know, when I'm teaching Oracle, this is one of the parts that's like difficult. People like some people would confuse those two. But if you keep it like that, it'll be easy. Does that make sense?
So we can say DDL have to do with the table itself. DML have to do with the contents of the table. What's going in and out of the table, and how you're manipulating what's inside the table. That's why they call it data manipulation language. This other one is called data definition language. It's like you dealing with the structures. Okay? Yeah. So delete means you're deleting a record. Insert means you're putting a record. Now, one of the key ones here is select. Select means I want to see what are the data that are inside of the table. And select is wide. You can see what tables exist, what's inside of the table. So sometimes people will say select can also be like this, but in the actual definition, select is here. Now, what is update? Update could be like this. Update is different from alter. When you say alter, what are you doing? You either add in a column, or you change it, or you deleting a column or something like that, right?
but it's not the data, it's your structure. Now, update means you changing a record. So first name, last name. So let's say first when you insert my record, you say my name is Mustafa Fofana. And Mustafa Fofana. But then you learn that I came in, I'm like, my name is not Mustafa, it's Mohammed. What do you need to do to my first name? You need to update it. So you're gonna change this from Mustafa to Mohammed. Does that make sense? So update just means you're changing a particular record. You're updating it with something new, right? Are we clear about this?
You're not touching the structure of that table.
Everything down here doesn't touch the structure. It's what goes in and out. Everything up here has to do with the structure of the tables, right? So, any questions so far? Okay, so when you learn everything, try to first understand the basics of how they work before you get to it. If you know that, half the battle is won. Okay, so there's something called, to create, we're gonna start with create, right? We're gonna create. Remember, I told you guys, everything in uppercase. In our example, I will make the things that are required uppercase for you know, and everything that can change in lowercase, so you know what to change. And usually what you do, you get a template. And if you understand the template, you can create anything you want. So the create command combines with the word table is used to create a new table. When creating a table, you need to name the fields / columns, right, in the table and assign them a type and size. In this presentation, I will cover the basics, right? So when you're creating a table, the first word you gotta say is create table. See how it's uppercase? That's the language you start with. Create. Remember I told you you can create other things. What are the other things I said you can create in a database? Rows and users. So if you want to create a user, what do you think the statement will be? Create user. If you want to create a role, it'll be what? Create role. See how they follow the stuff? But since this class we're focusing on table because you guys are not admins, we're saying create table. So we know when you want to create a table, you're going to say create table, right? Who can tell me if you want to drop a table, what do you say? Drop table. See, it's a lot easier than learning a regular language, right? So, but in the create, it takes a little bit, you got to explain some things, right? You got to think about when I'm creating, what type of information is going to go in there. So there's something called data type. Data type means what kind of information am I going to be putting in the table. So if I'm going to create a table called students, right? Students. That's going to be the name of this table. And this table is going to have 3 fields, right? It's going to have first name, it's going to have last name, it's going to have social security number, right? Now, when you build in this table, you have to think about what type of information is going to be in here. Because mind you, a database is very, very powerful. A database can do sorting, it can do lists, it can do mathematical equation, but you have to tell it. They're not like human beings. You have to tell it what's going to be put in here. So what's a name made out of? Alphabet. What do you call that? Characters. Char. Char is short for character. So you're going to use character. And the character goes from A through Z, right? So when they started with databases first, when you want to put a field that has to do with name, a place, a person, a thing, all of those things, right? You're going to say characters, right? So char means character. And you can decide, most people's names are within from 1 letter to maybe 25. Like Schwarzenegger is pretty long, right? So you got to think about, when you're creating a field, you have to think about how long you want the characters to be. You can tell it, okay? So now, what is Social Security made out of? Numbers, right? So you're going to use numbers. for social security number. So I'm billing, so you guys see first how it is, right? So this is gonna have what? Character, this is gonna have character, and this is gonna have numbers. So I'm thinking now, when this table is built, each column, what type of data I'm expected to put in there. Okay, but let me add another field here. It says date of birth, DOB. What kind of information is gonna go there? Your nope. Numbers is numbers. When I say when were you born, what do you put?
Month, right?
Date?
What do you call that? Date.
Date.
Date. There's a column called date. Date is for, right?
Or DOBs.
DOB, date of birth. Anything that has to do, when did you start your job? It's a date. When were you born? It's a date. When, so there's some columns that has to do with date. When were you fired is a date, right? When were you hired is a date, right? What's your social security number? Is a number. Is a number. What's your name? Is what? It's a character. Where were you born? Is what?
They are characters.
No. Where were you born?
Where? They are characters. Too.
Characters, right? What state are you from?
Characters.
Okay. Anything that has to do with name, a person, a thing, an object, stuff like this are mostly characters, right? So, but characters go only from A to Z. So there used to be a problem. Sometimes if you put A through Z, you know how some people, they get married, some women get married and they want to keep their name, the name they were born with. It'd be Harris. They put what? Hyphen Smith, right? Now with characters, it will not accept that hyphen. So solve issues like that with places where sometimes you may have a combination of characters and special characters. There's something called VACA, which stands for variable character, VACA 2 or VACA 1. So VACA stands for variable character. This will allow you to incorporate people who have special characters in their name, where before with just character, you didn't have it. So question is, if I'm doing a database now in this day and age with people from all around the world, which one would you choose? Would you go with character or would you go with VACA? VACA, right?
Yeah.
So now I want to add another column here that's called sex. So sex can be male, female, in this day and age can be transgender, right?
Yeah.
So now, would it make sense for me to use character in this or VACA, or variable character in this one?
Character.
Why? Because female and male is, it doesn't, it's three options, female, male, transgender, right?
Yeah.
So in this case, you want to use character. So when you build in your table, these are all things you got to think about. What the column is and what type of information am I going to put there? Are we clear? That's what I do. Make things make sense. Okay. So so here is, so now that we've visually see it, now we have to kind of show you the pattern on how to build a table. So you're always going to say example of building a table. Now that you know the data sets, and digits is just a form of numbers too. But a lot of times I can use number, and it can even be specific. If I say integer, what's the difference between a number and integer?
So they are the same. Integer is 1 to 9, I think.
A number can have 1.5. You can have a whole number and a decimal, right?
Yeah.
But if you say integer, can integer has a point? Can you have a decimal? No. So integer is a number, but it's more specific. If you say number, the number, like if I'm saying your salary, does it make sense to say numbers or integer? Numbers, right? Can I pay you $100.50? Can I pay you that?
Of course.
Of course. So numbers would be good, right? But if I'm doing Social Security, would it make sense to put numbers or integer? Integer. So again, integer is more, it's constraining you so you don't accidentally go put 0.5. Because if you start typing the Social Security, put 1.5, it's not going to take it because it's expecting whole numbers, right? So these are some of the things you think about. Integer is more specific, but when in doubt, numbers can take decimal. So sometimes when you build these databases, when you create these tables, you create it in a way so people don't make, you can prevent people from making mistakes. If somebody is entering somebody's social security and they accidentally put a dot there, because that dot is there, if you say it's supposed to be an integer, it's not gonna allow you to put it in. And the person like, what's going on? Oh, there's a dot there. But if you don't put that there, you just put number, guess what may happen? It may take it and then you see like, why is the dot on this social security number? Does that make sense? But again, I'm just giving you guys a start, so I'm not diving in too deep. I just want you guys to think. So everything that's mandatory is uppercase, right? So the ones that you have the choice to change are lowercase. So in this example, we're gonna create a table. So you're gonna say create table. Now, it doesn't have to be uppercase, it can be lowercase. This uppercase is just so you're learning, for you to know that this is what you don't touch, you keep this the same. Does that make sense? I can write this like this, C-R-E-A-T-E with lowercase. Table, T-A-B-L-E, it will still take it. But in this example, I made the field that don't change uppercase. So you know when you practice that, you keep this part the same, the way it is. And the things you change are everything that's lowercase. Does that make sense? So we're gonna create a table here called what? What's the name of this table? First pay. Now, it doesn't like spaces. If you put first and then you put a space pay, it's gonna think it's something else. You have to follow it. So that's why sometimes in database we'll put like this underscore, because it's expecting one word. The name of the table should be one word. But underscore is easier to read than you say first pay without a space. But the underscore makes it easier to read. Like if I say first name. Anyway, I'll show you in a bit. Does that make sense?
Because I want to ask that what if you could as well just use the other thing, like
so
hyphen?
You can use hyphen, that's fine. But again, it will take it. But the thing you don't want is to say first space name. It's gonna get confused because it's not expecting that space there. But so you can use underscore, you can use first dash name, but it has to be one word. The table name has to be one word without space. Does that make sense? It has to be one without space, because the computer is expecting you to follow. That's why they call it structured query language. It's expecting you to follow a particular format. And if you don't follow that format, it's not gonna understand what you're talking about. So we see in here saying create table. What's the name of the table? First page. Give me 1 second, folks. I needed to get my timer here. So it's first pay, right? That's the name of the table. So now we've defined what we're gonna call this table, right? But what must a table have? So you've named the table, first pay, right? What must a table have? A table must be what? Made up of what?
It must be records.
Fields and records.
Columns, fields and columns, right?
Yeah.
So now you have to define it when you're creating it, how many fields this table is gonna have, right? So in this example, this table is gonna have how many fields? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's gonna have 6 fields, right? But I told you guys, each field, you have to tell it what type of data it's expected to put in there, right? So in this example, the first field we're gonna have is what? Pay ID, right? And the pay ID, what are we expecting here? VACA 2. VACA means it's variable characters, right? So even if you put a $sign in front of it and the money, it will take it. If you just put the money, the variable characters can take anything from numbers. Basically, it can take anything that's on your keyboard. Any sign that's on your keyboard, it will take. Okay? If you put numbers, it will only take numbers. If you put dates, you can only put dates. If you put characters, you can only put things from A through Z, the characters, right? So you see how things work? So you got to think. So the pay ID, your pay ID can be AB 100.
Yeah.
Some companies will use right? For your pay, because pay period, every time you get paid, it has a pay ID. It can be mixed. Some people will just use numbers. But again, make it flexible, right? Or depending on how your company, whatever is you're creating this table for, however they structure the pay, you can do that. But the worst thing you don't want to do is you start putting in, you create a structure, and then you have to go back and start changing the data type. It becomes very, very difficult. So you got to think, before you create the table that's going to be used, how to best create it so that once you create it, it's flexible enough that if the company changes how the pay policy goes, it doesn't affect it. Let's say when you were building this, a company that we're only using 5 digits numbers, right? As a pay ID. But then later they start using another pay system, like they jump from one pay company to another pay company. And now this pay company has numbers and characters. If you had put numbers there, guess what you have to do? You have to go now alter the table, and then it can be a headache. But if you already had it as VACA, you don't have to do anything. They can now put their new numbers and letters, it will work. See what I'm saying? So when you're building tables, you gotta, these are the things I think about.
What's that tool doing at the top?
So before there was VACA, but then later they came out with VACA 2. It's like the second update. It's like an update, yeah. And VACA 2, see, variable characters allow you to get up to 4,000 characters in it, where a char can only go to 2,000. So it allows you to have, you can write a lot, like 4,000 characters in one field, as long as you want it, right? So just know that you can have up to 4,000, right? So so for pay ID, you're saying here, what data type you're expecting, VACA 2, right? And here, you put in the maximum characters for this field. So that means this field cannot be more than 4 characters. So you construct, you telling it, it's gonna be numbers and letters, but it cannot be more than 4. You see, that's what and then once so look at it here. You create the table, it has to follow a open parenthesis. When you start putting the fields, so you said what? Here, create table, the name of the table. As soon as you do that, you gotta have an open parenthesis. That's telling the system that I'm ready now to put the columns that are gonna be in my table. I've told you what the name of the table is. The open parenthesis says, I'm now ready to tell you what this field is gonna be. Does that mean, what are the fields that are gonna be in here? And look, what has to happen is, you're always gonna follow this. The first field is gonna be pay ID. So it's gonna be pay ID here. And then you're telling it pay ID is gonna be, you're gonna put a space. And then you're gonna say pay ID is gonna be a variable characters. Without any space, you're gonna put brackets here. You're gonna say 4, whatever number you want. If you don't put any number here, it can be as long as this. If you just say VACA 2, and then you leave it, it can be as much as this. But when you put a number here, you're constraining it. You put in a constraint saying the number they enter should not be more than 4 characters. Does that make sense?
Does it not make more sense to just leave it open?
You can leave, nope, you can leave it open, but sometimes if you know the company policies, our pay period is not gonna be more than 5 characters. To limit human mistake, you keep it. Again, some of this constraint you put in to limit the mistakes of the people that are going to be entering information inside of the tables, right? Because all you're doing right now, you're creating it. So this is what they call constraints. You're making them stay within a particular field, right? So you don't go start just, maybe somebody's forgetting and then just push and then put like, so you're limiting the constraint, right? But again, just know that you have to really think about this constraint before you do it. If you're not sure, maybe you can leave it open, and then once you know what you are, you can edit it. But the thing is, when you build a table, that's when you want to make sure you have everything in place. You don't want to be touching tables once they start collecting data, right? So the first field is going to use VACA.
So there's space there after that VACA 2, right?
Yeah, there's space. No, there's no space. VACA 2, no space, and then followed by that. There's no space. You don't have to. You don't need to. If you, yeah, don't put a space. It looks like there's a space there, but just because of the bracket. Anyway, we're gonna practice. Just pay attention to how we're doing it now. So once you've done this, and then you're gonna follow it by a comma. The comma is telling it, I'm done with the first column. I'm not ready to enter the second column. See how they have comma here? Says, what's the second column is name. So name is going to be here. And what type of stuff? Name, VACA2. And then some people names are long. So you can say 20 in this example. It means that if somebody's name is 20, it can be up to 20 characters long. In my way, I'll put it 40 because some people have very, very long names, right? So again, it's up to you, whatever you want to put there. But in this example, it's 20. Okay? So, right? So that's the second, and then you see again, what happens? We put a comma to tell you we're done with that field. The next field is going to be job code. A job code is a character. Maybe just job code means if you are in sales, it says SA, sales associate, right? If you're in HR, if you're in, it will be HR, right? If you're in IT, it will be IT. So that's your job code. It's a two character, right? So you see here, character, you say two. It has to be two characters. See how that goes? And then we move back here. The start date, when did you start working here? The start date has to be what? Date. With date, you just put date. It knows that you mean date, right? And then you see after each field, I will put in the comma. And then here, salary, it says what? Number. So now you see here a 9,2. Why do we do that? When you get paid, can I get paid $100.50? Yes. So what this is saying is this can go up to 9 digits. Your salary can be up to 9 figures, right? Nope. But because dollars is in cents, how many cents can you go to? 50 cents, 50. This is in cents. It means that the decimal point can only go 2, which makes sense if you're talking about dollar. Are they going to pay you $100.53 and 1? No, it's going to round. So what this is going to do is whatever the number is here, let's say it was supposed to be, it's going to round up to the nearest cent. See how that makes sense? Talking about money. Money doesn't go more than 2 decimal points, right? So that's what this is saying. So this is the whole figure. You can get paid up to 9 figures, plus you can the decimal place can only go to 2. See how, right? And then here you see bonus. Bonus is 5 digit. They didn't put 2 because it can take 2 or whatever. They don't care. But maybe this company here, the bonus they pay you, maybe they only pay you a whole number. If you get a bonus, you get $100 bonus, you get $200 bonus, but they're not going to pay you $2.50 bonus, which makes sense, right? Because sometimes they may just give you a flat bonus, right? So here, for the bonus, you just say number, and you can go up to 5 digits number.
Or in the case where, I know some companies actually pay, the decimal point.
Again, based on your company, you can put it. This example is just to give you guys that, based guidance based on the company. Some companies pay you a flat bonus. We're going to give you $5,000. That's it. But again, when in doubt, do like this. But I just want you guys to have like a variable of how these things work. Okay? Any question? And then guess what? So remember we started with open parentheses, right? And then we've done the last column you're going to put, you don't need a comma, just like when you write in English, right? You don't need a comma in the last one. But remember, since we open the original parenthesis here, you have to close it. And then the semicolon tells you I'm done with my statement. You can run it. Any questions regarding the creating of a table?
Are you recording?
Yeah. Okay. Any questions? So again, what I just explained here, I just give you guys the same explanation here, saying this here, name of the table you're creating, right? This here is a column, this here. So I just what I just explained is what's here. So in case you guys want to forget, the default date so the format for date is going to be day, month, year, right? It's shown as this. So it just tells you what I just explained. But again, you can read this. I'm not going to go through it again. I think I've explained it well enough. So let's practice,
I have
right?
a question.
Yeah.
The third parenthesis, what is it for? What's the meaning? The previous.
So the third parenthesis, remember when we started here, when we started after pay, we open it, right? So you always got to close it. These other ones, because you open it, everything that opens has to be closed.
Okay, I see.
So that's why. open here, close. So
Thanks.
what we're gonna do, no problem. We're gonna copy, whoops. I think I can copy here. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna copy this, right? I'm gonna copy the statement. So this statement says we're going to create this. Now, mind you, when I taught this, I was using an Oracle database. So there are little bit things that are different in Oracle database that are not in the free engine. But since this is a free session, I'm using the open source stuff. So SQL. So there's going to be a few limitations there as to what I used to do with the Oracle database. So here's what I'm going to do. So once you come to the SQL link again, and the good thing here too is you can create an account. So if you want, but again, it still works with free stuff. So I'm gonna go to select, and I'm gonna say try yourself. So go to the try yourself, and it's gonna open this, and you will see that there. So look here. Currently, what do I have? I have these 6 tables, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Actually, 8 tables, right? So I have 8 tables, but what table am I creating right now? First pay, right? And first pay. So if it runs well, you will see a new table get added here called first pay. So if I hit create, you see here, first pay has been created. But guess what? How many records are in there? 0, because we haven't done what? We haven't inserted any data yet. Okay? We haven't inserted any data yet, so we don't have any records. But we've created a table. Okay? So in Oracle now, there's a command called describe. If you want describe, it doesn't work here. But if you want describe, it will show you what you just created. You see here, the describe says describe and then the name of the table. So what does it do? It tells you the name of the column and what data it's expecting to be inserted in there. Any questions so far? So we are we good?
Yeah.
So again here, so now, so what have we done? What language have we used? DDL, right? So we just did what? We just created a table, right? So we created a table. We created a 6-row table. Right? So you have pay ID, we have name, we have job code, you have start date, we have salary, and then we have bonus, right? But it's empty. It's just an empty building, an empty shell, right? We haven't started doing anything yet. So we now need to do what? We need to put data in there. So to put data, what do we do? What now we're going to talk about, we're going to use DML, data manipulation language, right? Yeah. And one of the way we put data manipulation language is what? We're going to do an insert. So this is how we do the insert. So the insert is going to work like this, right? Insert is going to follow this command. Insert, what we insert in? Insert into. So this here doesn't change. So when you say create table, you say create table. Name of the table. Remember, everything in uppercase means that it has to be exactly like that. Everything in lowercase is your choice what you put in there. Does that make sense? But it has to follow this format. So here, insert into. What's the table we just created? First pay, right? Now, you're going to say values. Values is telling the system, I'm ready now to put in things, right? So, what's the first field? Pay ID, right? So pay ID, you're gonna put in single quote. For numbers, it doesn't need quotes. For everything else, you need quotes. You need single quote when you insert in. For numbers, you do not need quotes. For everything else, you should use quotes. And it's gonna put it exactly as you have it. So what's the pay ID for this person is, it has to get in order of how you created the table. When you created the table, if the first column is pay ID, when you do your insert, you're gonna put pay ID. Now, let's say you don't have a pay ID, just leave that blank. But you gotta put a comma. So you'll be like this, blank, comma. But again, for this practice, we're teaching you good practices. So what you're gonna do, you're gonna follow the same format. Pay ID is expecting what? Varchar 2, right?
Yeah.
Variable character. So you're gonna put 111 here, right? And then the comma means I'm done with that one. Put a comma here, and then what's the person's name? Linda Costa. Because it's in comma, it knows, even though there's a space here, because it's in single quote, it knows this whole line is going in the name, right? And then what's the job code? So you put a comma, job code is?
Chief Inspector.
Right? Chief Inspector, as you say, CI. And then followed by comma, right? What's the next field? Date, right? The start date. So start date 15-January 97, all right? Now, what's the salary? Salary is $4,500.00. Remember? Number and 2.
Yeah.
And then what's the bonus they're gonna get? $1,000. And remember, because you open the parenthesis, it needs to be closed. I told you guys numbers don't have to be put in parentheses. Everything else should be put in, in single quotes. See, all these have quotes, but the numbers don't have to be, right? So once you do that, you're good. So now we can just copy and paste this into our command, and now we're gonna have one record. So I don't know, let me try to copy this. So let me copy this command, copy. Now you cannot insert until the table exists, right? Cannot insert into a table that doesn't exist. So we created this table, we see that the table exists, right? So now, and I'm gonna paste this command, right? So watch here, when I insert that, it's gonna be a full column. So let me run it. See, now I have one record, right? Now, if I wanna see what's inside of that table, what's the command I run? If I wanna see what's inside, what record is inside this first page? So that's when we use what? The select. Select star. Star means everything, all the columns. From what's the name of the table?
Pay.
First
Pay.
Underscore pay, semicolon, right?
Yeah.
Now when I run it, see that? The ID, name, job code, start date, these are the columns, right? And look, I have my first record. See how you build in a database? You start to, what are we doing? So the last 2 things we did are what's called what? Data manipulation language, right? So we created a table, which is a data definition language. And then we inserted a record. Now, if I run the same command again, will it insert the record again?
No.
Are you sure?
Because of the how do I put it now?
Primary key. Have I said anything?
PID.
PID is just a column. It doesn't care. Yes. Oh, okay. So I'm gonna ask a question online. If I run this again, will this record be inputted again? The same thing? Yes or no?
Yeah, yes.
Yes. Yes. I haven't said anything. Yep. Yes. Yes. Any no's?
But in this case, I will specify that the
Yes.
distinct.
No. So I haven't put any constraint. I haven't said anything. Remember, I talked about primary key when we started. I haven't said anything about primary key. When I say in this column, has to be a primary key, then it will check. But I haven't said anything, so it will duplicate. So if I run this command again, right? See, now 2 records are there, right? If I run this command, see, same record appear once. Okay, so any question about this? See, we did select star and we had this 1 record, right? So now what I want to do, I'm going to do more inserts. But again, before I do another insert, I'd noticed that there's a mistake here in this, there's some duplicates here. How do I get rid of? Now my database is not good because I'm seeing duplicated record. How can I get rid of this? No, update, just update it. I'm seeing that.
Wanna delete?
I'm gonna delete. So to delete, see when I create, I say create table, right?
Yeah.
And what's the name of the table?
Yeah.
First pay, right? So if I want to delete, so if I want to delete, I'm going to say delete from, what's the name of the table?
Okay.
Will that work?
Yeah.
What am I deleting?
The duplicate. That means you have to paste everything, just like when you create it, right?
So when I say delete from, you got to be careful with this delete from. When I say delete from first pay, it wiped out everything. It's like you taking an eraser and deleting everything that's inside of your. To delete, to drop is very, very easy. But you have to be mindful. I'm gonna put everyone on mute. There's an echo in one of the places. So when you delete from a table. When I insert into. So when we did an insert, we insert, oops, insert into what? Table name, right? First. And then we put here values followed by. So this doesn't change either. So you're always gonna follow this. So values always has to be there, followed by this. And then in here, you put the fields in order of how you created them. But you see how you insert into a table? You delete from a table. So understand also, right? I'm deleting from. It's like you, I'm giving you, but I'm taking from you. See, so when I delete here, I delete from. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna run again the insert statement one time. And by the way, the control, if you hold on Control Z, it will move back. That's a shortcut to go back, Control Z.
Undo.
So yeah, undo. So what I'm gonna do again, I'm gonna run this statement again. Now I have 1 record. So I'm gonna say select. So you see how 1 record is here? So I'm gonna say select star from semicolon, and I'm gonna run that. See, now I have 1 record, right?
Yeah.
So again, it doesn't matter if I use uppercase or lowercase. SQL doesn't care. Linux does. So you see here, there's some other people names here, right? So you see here again, I'm gonna, whoops. I'm gonna insert a few of these other records. So here, who's this? I'm gonna insert into first pay, who?
So if you have like 1,000 names,
You have to
records.
You have to do it, yeah.
One after the other.
You have to go you have to go one at a time. But there's some programs out there, if you know what they are, some you can write scripts that can, if you have to do a lot of loading, they can convert it. So if you have like thousands, there are ways around it. There's a lot of records. But as far as you're concerned, you can only insert one record at a time. Okay? So you insert one record at a time. So sometimes, you know, when you go to university and the person is in the front desk or wherever saying, what's your first name, right? You put their first name, they fill in those fields. That's the front end. So they may have like a web browser in the front end where they put in your first name, your last name in a form. But in the back end, it's converting it to this SQL statement. And when you push enter, it's loaded in the table. So the front end may be like, you may see something like this. They have like a form, right? It says first name, they put in their last name, they enter in this, but in the back end, it's converting it to that, to put in the database, but you don't see that. That's where the database admins, you create the table in the back end, you guys in the back end that are creating tables, you do that. The web developer on the front end create the form that the person that works in the front office can just put. They don't need to know all this SQL. They can just put first name here, last name here, date of birth here. They're just entering that information in fields. But in the back end, it's converting it to SQL to input it in the database. Anyway, that's beyond the scope of this class, but it's just good knowledge to know. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna copy this statement and I'm gonna do an insert, right? Every time you do an insert, a good practice is to do select star. All right, so I'm gonna paste that statement. So you can see that I have one record, right? And I'm gonna run it. I have two records now, right? And then I'm gonna run the next one, and you see how it says one row created? So I'm gonna add this. These are all names I'm gonna add with the select. And I'm gonna run this. So now I have 3 records in first page. And then we're gonna keep going. I have 4 records. And then so I have 4 records, right?
Did you write this on a blank sheet or something?
Yeah, I wrote this, but I pasted it. I think you guys should be able to copy it as well. But get in the practice of writing it out. When you practicing this, try to write it. That way you get in the habit of knowing what to expect. Again, look at what I did. Everything in uppercase is what? Everything in uppercase is mandatory. The things that are in lowercase are your choices. So you see here, insert into the table name is lowercase because you picked the table name you wanted, right? Values has to be uppercase, and then here are the entries. So now if I do select star from everything, I should see 4 entries, right? Select star, see that? I have 4 entries. With the bonuses, the pay, the job code. You see how we're building the table? You literally entering information in the table. Any questions so far? Okay. So I want to focus more on the select. Let's practice a little more on the select, right? Now, if you say select star from first page, it's going to show you everything, right?
Yeah.
So this is like an example of how the tables will look, right? Like we see right now when we've done the columns and the. So right now, if I ask you, if we want to go and create one of these tables, let's do a practice, right? If I give you a chart like this, because I want you guys to go home and to try this at home, I want you to build each one of these tables and create the record like they are, right? So let's see if we can do the first one as a group, right? So this table is called what? Students, right?
Yeah.
And we're gonna have 3 columns. One is ID, one is first name, and one is last name, right? So let's see if we can build it out, right? You guys are gonna help me build this out. I'm not gonna build this out. You guys are gonna tell me what to do, and we build it. And what I want you guys to do is practice, see if you can build the rest of it. So you're gonna enter the information in there, right? So let's go to our SQL builder. So the name of the table is students, and we're gonna have 3 fields, which is ID, first name, and last name. And look at how they are, all right? So you guys are gonna tell me what to put. So let's first create the table. So what do I write?
Create.
People online also participate. So what should I put first? I'm looking for answers.
We are not even saying the table.
Insert.
Nope.
Inside the table.
Can you insert into something that doesn't exist? We have a table here called students.
Create student.
So we got to build this whole thing. But what's the first thing you got to do before you can do inserts? You have to, do you see a
Create a
table here
login.
called
Table.
table? You got to create a table. You already log in. So anybody who's talking about login, you should be talking about login here. No?
We create.
So I didn't. We already logged in because we're doing things in the database already. So we passed that stage a long time ago. So we have. I know. I'm just being tough on you a bit, but we're creating. So before you can insert, you have to create. So what's the statement to create?
Student.
Create table. Student.
You have to say create, but what you have to ask you, what am I creating? Create table. I'm creating a table, right? What's the name of the table?
Student.
Student, right?
Uh-huh.
Now, we got that part. What's the next thing that I said? Now we're ready for the columns, right? How do you know you're ready for the columns?
Parentheses.
Parentheses, right? You have to open the parentheses, right? So now what's the first column?
Student ID.
So it's ID, right? So let's go back. So you're gonna say ID.
ID.
Okay, what type of data goes into ID? Look at this. You have S103. What kind of data?
Variable character.
Okay, VACA,
Baka.
right? Big VACA 2, okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, CHAR 2, right?
Uh-huh.
And then how many digits are we seeing here? In most of these, how many characters are here in these entries? 4, right?
Oh.
Put parentheses here and say 4, and then close the parentheses, right? So we're done with the first column. Now what? What's the next one?
First.
Online?
First name.
Online? First, is it first name or what?
First name.
Or last. Just last name.
First. That first name is just first, right?
First name.
I don't see first name here. I just see first.
First.
First, okay.
Yeah. You guys gotta tell me exactly where you see. Right? So it's first. Okay, first. Now what?
Comma.
Are you sure it's a comma? What type of information?
Oh, what is it called? It's
Look
a
at it.
character.
You can say character, but what's a good example? I said some people's names may have hyphens and weird, right? So yeah, you're right. You can do character. Doesn't wrong, and it's not bad, but you can also use VACA in case somebody's name has some weird characters in the name, right? But again, you cannot go wrong with any one of these. It's your choice. But since you said character, first come, first serve. We'll do character, CHAR. Right? Now, the character, how many letters do you want to put here for names?
25.
Okay, so we say 25. Is that it?
Comma.
Comma. Okay, now what?
Last.
Last. And what do you want again? You want char as well?
Yes.
25.
Comma.
Now what?
Comma. Oh no.
Comma.
Close parenthesis. Semicolon.
Close brackets.
Yeah.
Close. Remember, we open whatever you do on the. If we open a bracket here, we have to close the bracket here.
Bracket.
And then how does the system know you're done?
Semicolon.
Semicolon, right? So now, if it works, we should see a new table here called students, right? So when I run it, we see students. Yes. Congratulations, you guys have created a, and we have no record. But now we have to enter some records here. So I see here 3 information, right? So I'm gonna paste it here for you guys to see. This is the information we need to put. So how do I do it? How do I do this now? So I'm gonna say what?
Insert into
Online.
Insert.
Okay, is that it?
And
What's next?
Table.
Hmm?
Into
You
the
insert what? You insert what?
insert.
You select.
Inside the table.
Look here, I've gone back to the previous example. Insert
into first.
I can't even see it.
Into the row. Into row.
into what?
Row.
Come on, folks, you guys are driving this class.
First row.
Huh?
Into row, right? It says row created.
You guys are seeing my screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look
It's
at
so
this
small.
Values.
Look at the insert statement.
Insert into first.
Inside the
Remember
ID.
I told you about everything in uppercase, right?
Okay, so insert into first.
Okay. So insert followed by what?
Into.
Into followed by. You see how when you get those keywords, they in blue. Insert into what? What am I inserting into? What's the name of the table?
Student.
Students.
Students, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then now what?
I can't see.
Then you enter the values.
You enter the name.
Okay. What is this?
Values.
You have to say values first. Remember, you have to tell them. So I'm gonna say values.
So
Followed by
enter. You enter first.
So the first one is what? Is a
ID.
so no. So yeah. So ID, right? So what's the number for ID? So I already copied this first one for you guys. I copied that first line here. It's down here. So what should I put here?
The hyphen thing first.
Open like single quotes,
Yeah.
quotes, and then I'm gonna put what? S103, right?
Mm-hmm.
Followed by single quote. Now what?
The name John. Oh, comma.
It's gonna be comma, exactly. Comma, followed by what?
Single quote.
Okay, now
John.
what? John, single quote, okay. Next what?
Comma.
Comma, okay.
Single quote. Smith. Single.
Okay. Is that it?
Comma.
Close parentheses.
Close it.
Yeah, close parentheses.
So do I put a comma for us like this? And then
No.
close it?
No, close parentheses.
Close parentheses, is that it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you sure? How do I tell the system I'm done?
Semicolon.
Semicolon.
Semicolon. So I'm gonna delete this and I'm gonna run it. So it looks like it works. So there's a one information here. Now, how do I know for sure it works? What do I run?
Yeah.
If I want to see the table now, how do I?
It says row affected one.
Yeah.
Gotta run.
How do I make sure the information is there?
View.
Gotta run it.
Huh?
You don't run it?
I already
Select.
ran it. Select. Okay.
Select star. First. No.
No. Where am I? What? You're missing one keyword from the select.
Select star students. Students.
No,
Student.
where is it going?
Select it. No.
Table.
Update the table.
From students.
You have to have the
Student.
select star. Where am I selecting it? From what table?
Student.
From students.
Students.
So what do I type again? Select star. What's the next thing?
From.
From students.
Students.
That it?
Mm-mm.
That? Is that what we have here?
Yes.
Is that what we have here?
Can't see, it's so small.
Yes.
Yes, we just created it, right? So for practice, we're gonna do one more. And then I'm gonna copy this information. And this time around, you guys should make it should be easier. So how do I insert that record? This new record? What should I put?
Insert.
Uh-huh. What am I inserting? Insert what? What's the next thing? You gotta. So somebody, so into. Yeah, I wish the people, I wish people can talk instead of, but I get it. Some way you don't want to talk, but some people are writing in the comments into, okay, what? Into what?
Student.
Okay, now what? Now I'm ready to put what?
The
This is the
values. No.
Parentheses.
No.
Open.
Value.
Right?
Value.
Parentheses.
Oops. Parentheses, okay. Now what? Here's the information here.
Comma. Yeah. And then S104.
Okay.
Because it doesn't.
Okay, now what?
Colon of that same thing. And then comma.
Single quote, quotation mark. You know how people do that little single quote? But this one is one, so just say single quote. Single quote.
Single quote,
okay.
Comma.
Single quote.
Capital
Mary.
Mary.
Single quote. Comma.
Single quote.
Jones.
Okay.
Parentheses.
Single quote first.
Single quote first. Parenthesis. Now what?
And then semicolon.
Semicolon.
Semicolon, right? Let me clear this out. Let me run it. We got two records. How do I see that that record is inserted properly? What do I run? How do I see what's inside of the table? How do I see what's inside of the
Select
star from
student.
and the bus.
Student.
Student. You know the table is students. So we have two records. You guys get the point. It's practice. Practice it. So now that we've known our basic form, let me see how we're doing on time. Wow, time is flying. So so here's what I want to make sure we understand. This is a select tree. So the select tree means you can have the first part is mandatory. So you have to select. You can say select all. You can say select distinct, or you can just say star, or you can pick the columns, right? So these are the options from a particular table. Now, there's some optional stuff that are called the where clause. This is like the select tree. You can select as much as you want, but what I want us to do for today, I'm going to teach you how to just go back to where we're going to end it here. But just know in the select tree, these are all optional. You can go here and group by, and all of these you can build to be as specific as you want. But for this class, I just want to get you up to this point. Okay? So for this example, what we're gonna do, we are gonna use one of the existing tables to do this. Okay? So we're gonna use the customer table. So if I wanna review what's in this customer table, right? How do I select what's in this customer table right here?
Select
Select
star
from whatever that name
From
is.
Customers.
Semicolon.
Okay, so when I run this, wow, I get a lot of customers here, 91 of them. Okay, so here's my question. If I want to, first of all, just see, I don't want to see all the stuff. I just want to see the customer name and their country. I want to see the customer name, I want to see the city, and I want to see the country.
Okay.
How do
so
I do
it's
that?
gonna be 3 records.
Is it alter?
Nope, not an alter.
Delete?
Alter means change the structure. Right now we're doing select, but I don't want to see, remember when you say select star, we're seeing everything here.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see everything. I just want to see the customer name, the city, and the country. That's all I want to see for this customer. How can I write that?
Select customer name, comma, country, comma, whatever the last one is.
Select, yep. Customer name,
Customer name, comma.
comma,
What's
country.
country, comma,
Oh, actually city first,
comma,
comma,
Berlin,
and then
comma,
country.
country,
Okay, is that it?
semicolon.
Is that
So you guys
parentheses?
just correct. You guys say select.
Isn't it from? That's from? There's no from.
Open and close.
No, remember here, we did a star. So pay attention to this. Select, and the star is a wildcard. It means give me everything.
Right,
But
we
we're
don't
not-
need that star.
So we don't need star.
No,
So is this,
no star.
am I done? So how do I finish this statement?
Semicolon.
Semicolon. Are you guys sure?
Yes.
No.
Where is this column coming from? Where am I getting this from, though? Guys, look above here and look below here. Tell me what's wrong with the statement.
You have to have an open and close.
Parentheses.
No, you only do open and close when you insert in records. When I'm doing, I'm giving you guys a select statement right here. We just did a select statement right here.
Can we put period?
Nope. So listen, folks, we did select star from this table called customers.
So select, take out the star, customer, comma. What is it? ID? What was the other one? I can't see it.
No, we've already picked it. We said customer. You guys told me already. Customer name, city, and country.
Country.
And semicolon.
And then semicolon to end.
But where am I? How does it know where to get this information from? Where is it gonna get these columns from?
Select from. Is it select from?
No, folks, pay attention here. This part is what you guys just did here. This part, this star, instead of saying everything, you guys are saying, give me this column. Look again, let's look again at the example. It says select, you're gonna pick the list of columns you wanna see. What comes next?
From.
Table name.
From.
So select from.
No, you don't say select from. You pick the columns. Look, this is a tree. Select the column names you want to see from the table you want to, from the table where those columns belong. So again, you guys have done select. the columns you want to see from where?
Customers.
This is how it should be. Now it show me customer name, which is the first one you picked, city, which is the second one you picked, country, which is the third one you picked. But this just means this is column. The computer needs to know where these columns are. So you have to tell it from the table called customers. Okay, let's do this again. If I want to see, there's a table here called orders. There's a table here called orders. If I want to see everything that's inside that orders table, what do I type?
Select
Select
Star.
from
no
Select star from, what's the name of the table?
order.
orders.
Okay.
Semicolon.
So
Select star.
now, if I only want to see the customer ID and the employee ID from this table, how do I write that statement?
Select
Customer
Select
ID.
customer IDs, comma,
Select customer ID, and copy and paste it,
comma,
comma, and then the employee ID.
employee ID.
Okay. These are the only two columns I want to see. Okay.
Yep.
Now,
From
Semicolon.
no, you gotta
orders.
remember,
From order.
guys. You gotta remember.
From
Pay attention to this. This
Let's
is what
see.
I'm gonna.
From orders.
So it always has to follow this. So you're selecting the column from a table. It has to follow this. Selecting the column from a table. This is the minimum requirement. So I said select column 1, column 2 from
Orders.
what's the name of the table?
Orders.
Orders.
Orders. The law doesn't change. It has to follow that pattern all the time. See that? So now I have customers and orders. Now, let's do one more. Let's do employees. I want to see everything that's in the employees table. How do I do that?
Select star from
From
employee.
employee.
Now, I want to see the employee's last name, but you see how here last name came before their first name, right? I want to see the employee, but this time I want to see the employee's first name, then their last name, and their date of birth in that order. How can I write that?
Select from
Select.
last name, comma, first name, comma, employee number.
No, I said I want to see their first name first, then their last name, then the date of birth. How do I write that?
Select.
Select first name, comma, last name, comma, date of birth.
From
From the name of the table.
from employee.
comma date of birth.
Photo out. Okay, and is that it? Now what? Date of birth, name from what? Employees, right?
Semicolon.
See that? First name, last name, employees, right? So, are we good? So right now what we've done is this. We've done this. Whoops. We built the mandatory field for a select statement must follow this. It must follow this order. It must follow this order, right? So this is what we did. You always have to say select. what are the columns you want to select, right? So if you want to see everything, just put star here. If you don't want to see, if you want to see the individual columns, you put the column. See this little thing is saying you got to put the name, right? And it always has to come from a table name. This is the minimum requirement, right? So, but then you have an option to make it, you can say the where clause. The where says, I want to even make it smaller. So what I want us to do is, I want to do a select star from customer, from the customer table.
Where star equal.
Right? So here's the thing. I have customers that are all around the world. This is giving me all the customers I have. Now, if I ask you guys, hey guys, I want to see only the customers that are in Germany. I want to see only the customers that are in Germany. How can I do that? So,
Okay. So it has to be select.
so select, so this is the tree we're going to use. Select star. I want to see all the information from these customers.
Star.
But here's where, from customers, okay? But I only want to see in Germany. I only want to see the ones from Germany. This is where it gets interesting.
Oh, where?
Where, I'm gonna add the where clause. This is optional. So I'm gonna say where. Where what? What's the column that has countries? The where country. Where the column, you're gonna say country.
Country.
Country equals to.
Equal.
Germany.
What
Germany.
country?
Germany.
Germany, right? So I'm gonna put it in single quote. I'm gonna put it in single quote. I'm gonna type it Germany. And I'm gonna close the quote, right? And then I'm gonna tell it I'm done. So what I'm saying is here, give me all the information, but I only wanna see where the country equals to only Germany, right? So I'm adding a condition. This is what's called optional. So now if I run that, you see that? It's only showing me 11 customers that are in Germany. That's the where clause. So if I want to see the ones that are in Mexico, how would I write that? I only want to see my customers in Mexico.
Where?
Where?
Country equal.
Country equal.
Equal Mexico.
Single quote.
Mexico, right?
Mexico.
Mhm.
Yeah, I got 5 customers in Mexico, right? Now, if I want to see my customers in US,
Where those changes.
Country equal.
think USA. See that? I have 13 customers in USA. See that?
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's another thing here when you look at this statement here that says there's an option called distinct. Distinct is when you're trying to find out where only things doesn't repeat. So if I tell you how many countries are you serving, how would you know how many countries you're serving? USA repeats. That's not going to give you. If you want to know distinct, there's a command here called distinct. Where does distinct go? It goes when you select. So if I say select distinct, I want to know distinct what column? Countries, right?
Yeah.
If I put here countries is a column, parentheses, right? So the distinct means I put distinct here and I put it in parentheses, I say country.
Country.
From where?
From
Customers, right?
customer.
It's gonna only show me, if you don't have 91 records here, it's only gonna show me what? How many distinct countries I'm serving in. See, 21. See there, it shows me 21 countries I'm serving. So that's the distinct. So you see here, when you put distinct and in a column, you can say all means show me all countries, right? So you see how we can play around with this
Select
thing.
distinct.
So Now, I have a question for you guys. Look here. If I want to see all my customers that are in the US or that are in Germany, how can I figure that out?
Where countries from,
Where
comma,
country? So there are two ways I can do it. Where countries equals to USA, comma,
comma,
no, it doesn't work that way. Where countries equals to USA or country equals to what?
Was Germany.
And then here. So the or is another option. Give me all of yeah, you see that? Where countries equals to USA or
Or
country equals to
Germany.
I misspelled Germany. Or Germany, right? See that? It gave me 24. And look here, USA, Germany, USA, Germany, USA, Germany. So if I want to also know the countries that where my customers are in USA, or they're in Germany, or they're in Mexico, how can I do that? I'm going to put another or. Or
country
equals to
equal
Mexico.
Mexico.
See that? USA, Mexico. So now, see how?
What happens? Sorry, I'm
Go ahead.
Where I'm just thinking. What if you wrote that USA, or you don't repeat that country equals, or Germany, or I just want to see what's on there.
You're saying, oh, I just put comma here?
No, if you say or,
okay.
You don't repeat that country equals.
Remember, the system will not know. It can only search based on the columns here. So if you put or equals to Germany, it will not know what you're talking about. Because it's going to search, they only bring USA because it doesn't know what Germany is. You have to tell it because it's going to search the field. So you have to tell it what column it has to do. Now, what some people say, what would wrong if I say and instead of or? And some people may say, you may want to say USA and. And means they're both from the two countries. It's not going to work. It's going to be giving nothing. And means it has to meet two conditions. See, no results with that. Because there's no. So let's try this. Let's do select. So the and can be something like this. Let's say select star from this, right? Now I want to see and can be like you want to see somebody who's from select star where country equals to USA, right? And do we see any states here that repeat? Do we see any city here that repeats?
Portland.
Portland repeats, right?
Yes.
So we have two Portland. Yeah. So if I only want to see the people where my customers are in the US and they're only from Portland, what can I add here to make that only the people from Portland? What would I put?
Where city?
Where country equals to US, I want to see only people in USA and also only the people who are in Portland. And what? What do I put? And what field?
City.
And city.
City.
Equals to what?
Portland.
So the and is meeting these two conditions. They have to be from the US and they have to be from Portland. So and shortens the field or keeps adding. Like we say, so if I say or, if I put here or, it's gonna give me the same result because now I'm saying either they're from the US or they're from Portland, right? So it's gonna give me the full list of 13 people because it doesn't. But if I say and, I'm saying it must be from the US, and on top of that, it must be only from Portland. Or is give me, if either one of these criteria meet, send it to me. Does that make sense? So as much as I wanted to go over some more, time is up. So I wanted to just give you guys a start. So you can build from this, and what I would say is practice this stuff. And here's what I want to leave you guys with. If you go through this one-on-one and you start, you can see the select. It goes to show you the distinct. It shows you where. It shows you and or where. So we've actually covered all of these and even some of the DML here that says create. So lastly, we did drop, right? How to drop a table. If you want to drop a table, you just say, look, you can just go here and say, whoops. You can just go ahead and say, if you want to drop this called customers, right? You can just say drop. What am I dropping? Table. And what's the name of the table? Customers, right? Customers, right? And watch here how this customer table, you got to be very careful with drop because it's going to wipe out the table. See that? Customers is gone. If I want to drop the student table, say drop table.
Student.
Right? Run. So student is gone. So that's the drop table. So we did create, we did drop, we did insert, we did delete, we did the where clause. So we've covered in this here, if you go to this tutoring, we've covered the select, we've covered the select distinct, right? We've covered this where. If you just go through this, it will explain it to you and give you practices you can do. So you can literally go in and go throughout this whole thing. And if you can get all the way down here, you become like a mid-level SQL champion. Okay? So,
Very cool.
So we're out of time. I want you to practice. Both the slides are there and this is there. So just practice on your own. Do you have any questions so far? I wanted to do more, but again, time is a limit. So I gotta respect the people's time and I gotta call it a day. But hopefully I've given you guys a foundation for you to practice your SQL skills. Any questions?
No.
So Saturday, I will send an invite. We're gonna send multiple invites on the screen. One of them will be for the AWS. If you want to take the AWS, you want to attend the first AWS session, which will be an introduction to the cloud. So that one will be free for the first session. It's gonna be from 10 to 2, which are our normal classes. And after that, that'll be the end of the free. So if you want to join any one of those sessions, I'll let you know. I'll also post the first sessions for the cybersecurity for the folks that want to kind of see what cybersecurity is about for that first session, and also for the so you're welcome to join it. But as of today is the official last day for the free session. The other ones are for the paid, but we'll give you a bonus for you guys. Some people don't know if they want to take those classes or not, but you're welcome to take that course, the first session, and see if you like it or not. Okay? So I'll be posting this video probably sometime tomorrow for this session, and everything we've covered so far will be up. So you're welcome to go back to the videos, to the slides, you know, for the next, at least till the end of the year, that will be up there. So you can practice and do whatever you need if you want to continue practicing. And like I said, please subscribe to our channel. I'll be creating some content. Maybe I'll be doing some shorter videos and explaining more details about some of this SQL stuff, some of the stuff we learned, and I'll be posting them on the YouTube channel. Okay? So thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. See you on Saturday.
Thank you.
Okay.
See you on Saturday.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.